And I'm gonna chase it. And I'm gonna chase it. I know we can't ignore it, no matter how hard we try. And I'm gonna chase it. And I'm gonna chase it. I know we can't ignore it, no matter how hard we try. Fire in the veins, I fight to gain, breaking all the rules to keep me sane. Living the moment till I die. And I'm gonna chase it. And I'm gonna chase it. I know we can't ignore it, no matter how hard we try. And I'm gonna chase it. And I'm gonna chase it. I know we can't ignore it, no matter how hard we try. No matter how hard we try.
Well. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a brand new episode of 4th and 10U. What is going on, Mike? How you doing, buddy?
Oh, you loving life, man. I'm ready to dive in. My eyes are bleeding from watching all this tape.
I know. It has been very what is the proper term? It has been very it feels like we've done a lot of work watching all this tape, right? Tiresome, I think, is the word. Tiresome. And there's been good stuff, and then there's been bad stuff, and then there's been ugly stuff. The good, the bad, the ugly, and then there's a lot of unknown. You know, that's really what I've experienced. What have you experienced? Go ahead.
For the first time in my life, I think I'm sick of watching college football.
Don't say that. Don't say that. Please, no. Yeah, I completely understand that. This is one of the few drafts that I don't really have a clear QB1, to be honest. Not like the undisputed QB1. Every year there's the one guy and you know he's the guy. You know, like in the Tua draft, you had Burrow, and to me, I felt Burrow was the guy no matter what, right? The most recent draft we had with all the QBs, everywhere. Personally, I think what's his name? Jane Daniels. I think he was really the guy in this draft, right? You had a lot of other guys that were unknown. We'll see. But this year, I don't have a guy that like he's the undisputed. He should be the number one pick. I don't have that. We'll definitely get into it. But before you do so, do me a favor. Make sure you go and hit the like button, turn on the notification bell, and subscribe if you're brand new, right? Go over to Twitter and follow us at 4th and 10U, right? So make sure you go and follow us. We have our Twitter page there. We're going to be posting, our videos there as well. There's some articles that I have that are going to be coming out soon. They are going to be posted there. That's a good way to, reach out to us, give us feedback. Hey, maybe there's players you want us to talk about or something going on in college football that you want us to talk about. Message us, post it there, put information there, comment, leave it in the comments here in YouTube as well. So definitely do that for me. All right. And so, Mike, do you want to get right into it? Is there anything else you want to talk about? I know I got my national champs hat on for this episode. Just want to point that out real quick. And I don't know if you saw the
nice hat.
I tried to give you guys some love on this side here with, the Texas Longhorns. I got the Donald Ducks of the Pacific Northwest to my right. Let's see who else we got. We got the Alabama Tide. Looks like that upside down team up north is getting stomped by a Buckeye right there. What else is happening here? You got Florida State, Minnesota. Looks like I got some of the classic trophies behind me. And if I move a little bit, looks like the new championship on this side. Yep. Sorry.
I see you had to throw. I see you to throw 2 Buckeyes in there. 3 with the Ohio State, but it's fine.
Yeah, it is what it is. Tried to change it up a little bit since we're a college show. And just to be clear to our audience, we're not an Ohio State Buckeyes channel. I'm a big fan, so obviously I'm going to talk about them. But we're going to talk all college football. So stay tuned for some upcoming content. We're going to be talking about other positions, not just the quarterbacks like we are tonight. We have a mock draft that we're going to be doing. There's a lot that's going to go into this series. And eventually, when we get closer to the college football season, we will also have a Big Ten day and maybe an ACC day, maybe an SEC day, where we talk about those conferences as a totality rather than just individual teams. So we'll definitely, we got a lot of stuff planned. It's going to be a lot of fun. But let's get into it. So who's on your board? Uh-oh, I lost it. There it is.
Uh-oh. Technical difficulties. We're the channel and we're the show for technical difficulties. Everybody just, that's going to be what we were known for a little bit. We're ironing out the kinks, guys.
Hey, it's that team up north. They were hacking my system, okay? All right? Just going to point that out.
Before, the draft board, but I want to tease the end of the show. We got to get into this Michigan stuff.
Oh, well, if you want to talk about it, I got a lot to say. Yeah. That might even need.
So why don't you? What?
Go ahead.
Oh
boss.
Yeah, own episode. I agree with you. No, own episode. I get you. But I want you to start with your draft board, and then we'll get to my draft board for QBs.
Oh, it's in order. Me first, you second. So definitely.
Of course, should have guessed.
The agenda for today is review of notable players per position. So today we're talking about quarterbacks. Now, I know we're not going to get to everybody's favorite quarterback in this draft today. This is a handful of 10 quarterbacks to be exact. A handful for me and a handful for Mike. There's some other quarterbacks I know that are maybe prominent ones that people want to know about. We are going to have an additional episode that talks about some of the ones that we don't talk about today, just to be clear. The order of these quarterbacks, there is no special order. Just because I have somebody first doesn't mean that's the first quarterback off the board whatsoever. It's just the first one I'm reviewing in this show, just to be clear. So, who are the safe steals, busts in this draft? That's what this series is going to be when we break down positions, right? We're going to talk about all the good, the bad, the ugly, and the unknown to kind of decipher who's a safe bet, who's the steal, and who are the busts in this draft. And eventually, we're going to do a complete mock draft of the first round. Me and Mike, we're going to draft for everybody, not just our favorite team.
Can I give the worst players to my least favorite teams?
Sure. So these are some of the quarterbacks we're going to be talking about today. This is going to be definitely a very, very interesting draft. So let's get into it. The first up is Jackson Dart. He is the Ole Miss QB who is about 6'2", maybe 6'3" if you ask some, weighs about 225 pounds, has a projected 40 time of about 4.85 seconds. To be clear, the information you're seeing here is before the combine, right? So once we have combine, we're going to have more of an estimated or an exact projected 40 time. Also, the projected rounds that you see here are projected based on what the current consensus is. A lot of this can change after the combine. You know, Jackson Dart is one of those QBs that I think could sneak into the first round. So just to be clear, he had about 4,279 yards last season with a completion rate of 69.3%, 29 touchdowns, and had 3 rushing touchdowns. Jackson Dart, if you didn't know, he is from Utah, went to Corner Canyon High School, was a 4-star recruit, won the Gatorade National Player of the Year Award in 2020, right? Originally in 2021, joined USC, played as a true freshman due to injuries in the QB room, flashed big playability, but dealt with some inconsistencies. Most notably at USC against Washington State, he had 391 yards and 4 TDs in his first start. So that was a pretty awesome start, to be honest, as a true freshman. He later on in 2022 transferred to Ole Miss, won the starting job, and his first season, 2022, wasn't the best. Eventually, he had a much better season in 2023. And after watching tape, this is what I learned. I learned that he has a very strong arm, solid mechanics, right? He carries himself with great poise, very commanding. You can tell he has some really good leadership skills. He's a tough competitor, plays with confidence. Since his 2022 season and his 2023 season, he has improved his decision making. His decision making is much better compared to what you would have seen in those previous years. And he has experience in a Lane Kiffin offense, which, in my opinion, that is kind of a complex offense. Would you agree, Mike? It is kind of a complex offense.
Yeah, I think it's definitely more pro style.
Yeah, more pro style, and also it emphasis on RPOs and explosive plays, right?
Yep.
So those are some of the strengths that he has. He has good mobility. He can extend his play with his legs. You may have seen him in the Senior Bowl running for a touchdown. He got to show that off. He got to show his arm off with a flea flicker. A hell of a pass, to be honest, and a hell of a catch by the receiver as well. There are some issues, though. He still can be inconsistent under pressure, but also inconsistent with no pressure, which is kind of an issue. His footwork does need refinement at times. He does need to improve his deep ball accuracy and specifically his placement of the ball. There was several times I've seen in several games where he's leading the receiver appropriately. However, where he's placing the ball is really dangerous for a receiver. There was 2 or 3 passes in one game where if he had just placed the ball in a slightly different spot, the receiver wouldn't have gotten his head taken off, for example, right? And you know that you don't want to get your receiver hurt, to be honest, right? So you got to make sure you place the ball appropriately, or at least put it somewhere that you know that the defender's not going to catch it if your receiver's not going to. He tends to force throws in tight windows, which can be an issue. The pro game, the NFL game, is a lot faster. Defenses are a lot more complex. Coverages are a lot more complex. You don't have the ability to throw in these wide open windows like you may have seen in college. That can be an issue. His arm strength, he does have a strong arm, as I said before. It's good, but it's not elite strong arm strength, if you know what I mean. So overall, the bottom line, I do think that Jackson Dart is a very solid pick, right? He has the leadership skills. He has the abilities. He has the arm strength. He can use his legs. He does everything very well. I'm going to say he's definitely a safe bet in my book. What do you think of Jackson Dart?
I think safe is probably a good word choice there. I do think he has a lot of natural skills that you can't teach, and he does have natural abilities, and the size is not terrible at 6'2", 225. I liked watching him play. I think he definitely is a sneaky quarterback, and I agree he might actually sneak into the tail end of the first round. It just depends on how many teams are desperate to get a young quarterback in the door. But Jackson Dart, anybody that plays in the SEC, he's played against the best of the best in the competition, aside from Ohio State, but. I think he showed this year under Lane Kiffin that he definitely has the potential. But I think second round, early second round, late second round is more likely. But I do agree there's a chance he sneaks into the first round.
Yeah, I think if he's going to sneak in, it's going to be in the tail end. You're probably right. I mean, who knows? There might be some teams that are really thinking about their QB situation. You got Arizona. Do they really truly believe in Kyle Murray? Don't know. So you got Cleveland, the Giants. You got Arizona, who need a quarterback. Who knows? The Raiders need a quarterback too, right? They just have a brand new coach. They got Chip Kelly in the room. Hints. That might be a team that might go over another quarterback we're going to go over today. But that might be a destination for Jackson Dart. Miami, huge, selection there. They might need a quarterback, especially we definitely need a backup. Do they truly want to stick with Tua? We don't know. So that might be an option. I think there's definitely a lot to be had here with Jackson Dart. That's why I think more than likely he's either going to be a second day guy or definitely sneak in the first round. I do not think he lasts to the third day whatsoever. So you can, put that to bed just so you're aware. But that's my thoughts. Any last thing you want to say about Jackson Dart?
A hell of a name for a football quarterback.
I hope he throws touchdowns like darts. You know what I mean? It could be his coin phrase, bullseye. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Next up, Kyle McCord. Kyle McCord out of Syracuse. He's the OSU transfer. I don't know if you guys remember, Kyle McCord was backup to CJ Stroud before CJ Stroud went to the NFL. He's 6'3", weighs about 220 pounds, they say, but he's more like 225, I want to say, about now. Projected time is about 4.95. His projected rounds is about anywhere around the 4th and 5th. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, based on what I saw, I can tell you this guy's definitely going to be a day 2 guy for sure. Okay. Maybe as high as the second round. This is a guy that I think could surprise a lot of people. He actually surprised me. And to be fair, I did have some biases against him because he was Ohio State's former quarterback, right? I saw a lot of the faults or the weaknesses, specifically in decision-making area with Kyle McCord when he was at Ohio State. However, the Syracuse tape, I will say Syracuse has fixed Kyle McCord. He is now what I call a pure gunslinger. This guy can throw the ball like the best of them. He had 4,779 yards, 66 completion percentage rate, 34 touchdowns, and 3 rushing touchdowns. Kyle McCord, to give you some background, I already said he went to Ohio State, served as a backup to CJ Stroud. He has in my opinion, strong arm to elite arm. Like there's somewhere in between there, right? He has super strength. He makes throwing the ball downfield look super easy. Like he's throwing a stone, but it goes a mile. You know what I mean? That's how easy it looks. What else can I say about him? He's poised in the pocket with solid decision-making skills. He's what I would call Iceman if I were to give a nickname to quarterbacks. Like in Top Gun, you have Maverick, Iceman, Wolfman. This guy, I'm going to call him Iceman. And I'll tell you why. The guy is so cool, collected in behind the line. he doesn't really look like he's making anything, worry him. You know what I mean? There's no this, oh my God, what am I going to do back here? And, like frantic running around. None of that, right? Looks cool, collected, throws the ball with ease. He makes it look so easy. Every one of his throws looks like a dime or a great spin, and whatnot on the ball. Capable of running a pro style offense effectively, adequate mobility, but primarily a pocket passer, right? Needs to improve under pressure in high leverage situations. That's something that I do think is accurate. He does need to improve in those high pressure situations. There were some inconsistencies with his decision in throwing, but it's gotten a lot better, right? McCord is considered below average athlete for quarterbacks positions, lacking the quickness to evade defenses. Like I said before, he's a pure pocket passer. He's not like your dual threat, going to take off, but he can run. He does have some mobility with him as well. When he is faced defensive pressure, his mechanics and decision making can sometimes deteriorate. But I will say, as the season went on and I watched more and more tape of him, he's gotten much better. A lot of his issues that they have, I really feel like they can coach out of. The only thing I nitpick, and I want to know what you think on this, he has a weird throwing mechanic. I don't know if you've ever watched him throw, right? When he's throwing the ball and he's going to go release the ball, he does this snap of the wrist, and it's so evident, it makes it almost look not normal when throwing the ball. Have you ever seen him throw the ball like that? It's like so weird.
I'm gonna go watch him right now while you're talking.
Yeah, it's go watch how he throws the ball. It's really weird. I thought maybe it was just that throw, and then I started watching more games like against Miami and against some of the other teams that Syracuse played this season, and it's just a very weird mechanic on how he throws, but he makes the ball just float so well. It always is deep ball, really good. He has some Matt Stafford in him when it comes to like being a gunslinger. He kind of reminds me of him, to be honest.
It's a baseball release.
Yeah,
He snaps his wrist against his hip like a baseball pitcher.
Yeah, it's kind of something different. What else did I have here? I'm looking at my notes here. He sometimes tends to lock on to a primary target rather than looking for his progression, right? He's gotten better. When he was at Ohio State, I did see him, look at the first read, second read, third read, and whatnot, more often. But at Syracuse, he had some favorite targets, and when he gets locked on them, that's what he tends to do, and that's something maybe you can coach out of. And some people think that when he gets pressure, his mechanics tend to break down, as I said earlier. I think a lot of that is more of just matter of a decision making, and it's something he can be coached into. I think he could be molded into a quarterback. The reason I have him going as high as the second is he has stuff you can't coach. He has the arm strength. He has the touch on the long ball and the intermediate throws, right? He has a good way of being calm and collected. He has leadership skills and whatnot. Those are things you can't really coach, right? It's not like you can give somebody leadership skills or give them arm strength. But what I can do is I can sit down with you and say, hey, when you see this type of defense, these are some of the decisions you can make. Those are things you can teach and he can learn from, right? And that's why I think he's going to go up there maybe in the mid-second round area is really where I have him right now. What do you think of Kyle McCord?
I think this season was a win for him, leading Syracuse to a 10-3 record, knocking Miami out at the end. I think he definitely improved his draft stock. Then he had the Senior Bowl performances, but or did he go to the Senior Bowl?
I don't think
or
he
not the
did.
Senior Bowl, but yeah, never mind. I was still stuck on the last quarterback. Anyways, but I do think that being able to take Syracuse to a 10-3 record, and then in probably the biggest game of their season, knocking out Miami. I think he definitely improved his draft stock this year from where he was a couple years ago. But again, there's a lot of quarterbacks in the draft that have a good size to them. There are a lot of quarterbacks that don't, but 6'3", if he plays at 225, he can take he can take a beating. Um, I do think that you said Matt Stafford. I see that, but and not on the prolific level as the guy I'm about to say, but he kind of reminds me of Aaron Rodgers in his escapability and his ability to switch his hips and throw the ball when he's running to his left. So
Mhm.
it'll be interesting to see where he goes. If he goes to the right system and gets a good player, good QB to play behind for a few years, he could. I think you're right. He could be something special.
So I agree with you 100%. He has that weird how do I put it? He has a lot of stuff that he does very, very well that he could be that Bo Nix of the 2025 draft. If you know what I'm talking about. He
Yeah.
you know what I mean? He has the right NFL pro ready size. He has the arm strength. He knows how to, he's a gunslinger. He has a lot of good stuff that he does that I think that he could be, the Bo
You
Nix
know,
of this draft. Now, one thing I will say though, real quick, did you know he also led FBS in passing? He had the most yards with 4,779 yards. So,
yeah.
that's something else. He
Well,
had a hell of a
I could
year. Yeah. Go ahead.
I could see him going to the Saints, a team like the Saints, and probably being pretty productive.
That's a
They've
good one.
been they've been fiending for a quarterback, but I do think as the Saints would be a good team for him to go to.
I agree. And if Kellen Moore gets that job, because that's who I think is going to end up being the coach there, I think this would be a great pickup for him, at least as a starter, starting QB or someone to work with, until they get their guy, or if maybe he is the guy. Any last bottom line thoughts about Kyle McCord?
No,
All right. Oh, here we go.
we're gonna have to get you an editor. Our little banner says "also, please follow" instead of "also," but it's okay.
I thought I had fixed that. I'll fix it. All right. Max Brosmer is now up here. If you're wondering who Max Brosmer is, Max Brosmer is the starting quarterback of Minnesota. He's 6'2", about 225 pounds, runs approximate 490 is his 40 time. A projected undrafted free agent is where he's projected. I have him more of a 7th round kind of guy. Now you're probably wondering, why do I have a UDFA up here, right? Why am I bringing this guy to the room? There are a lot of teams that have a quarterback, but they need a backup quarterback. So I'm bringing some light to some quarterbacks that I think that could be molded into being that professional backup. This happens to be one of them. He had about 2,828 yards, completion rate of 66.5%, 18 touchdowns, and 5 rushing touchdowns. The reason I like Max Brosmer, if you're looking for a developmental 7th round draft pick, right? He has an extremely high football IQ and field awareness. He has strong decision making, low turnover rate, which I think is important if you are a backup quarterback. Good accuracy on short to intermediate throws. He is an experienced leader with nearly 50 career starts in his career.
Oh wow.
Yeah. He has a competitive and mentally tough. He's considered mentally tough and competitive. He does have limited arm strength and does struggle with deep ball velocity, right? Some of the other quarterbacks that you're probably thinking are going to get drafted way before this guy in the 7th round have some of those similar problems. He's less athletic compared to a modern dual threat quarterback, so he's definitely not a Cam Ward or anything like that. And he needs to adjust to the speed better of the pro game, right? What I do like about him, he is a traditional pocket passer. He has good anticipating leverage and with confirming coverages. So he can read defense, can kind of see the coverage before they snap the ball, as well as he kind of has a really good idea of where he needs to put the ball, right? What else did I put here on my notes? So prior to transferring to Minnesota, he played for New Hampshire, was one of the top quarterbacks in Georgia high school football history. Just so you know that. Trains with private quarterback coach Quincy Avery. That's another thing that he does. He has some of the things that they said about Brock Purdy before he was drafted, right?
I was thinking.
Go ahead.
I was thinking that from what you said so far, he sounds a lot like Cooper Rush.
Cooper Rush is a good comp. Brock Purdy is one that I was a lot of the stuff they said. I was like, that kind of reminds me of somebody. And I started thinking about it, and I happened to look. A lot of people compare him to Brock Purdy too. And watching him throw the ball, he throws the ball very well. He has very good at intermediate throws. Like I said, low turnover rate. You want to really, in my opinion, if you're going with a backup, you want somebody that's going to be your check down king, really, because you don't want to turn the ball over. You want to play it safe. This is the guy to do it with. He can read the coverage. He knows where to go with the ball, right? This is for those teams that are looking for that backup that they want to develop. This is the guy. Nobody, I will say, no way do you want to take this guy in the first round as being your starter. Nothing like that. Not to say that can't happen. Look at Brock Purdy, where he's at now. But all I'm saying is, if you're looking for that kind of guy, this is your guy. So, any thoughts on Max Brosmer?
I have not watched a single play of his.
Okay. All right. Well, this is to kind of shed some light on some guys to think about. Hey, I know our favorite team, the Dolphins, are looking for backups. This might be somebody they pick up in the 7th round, or even as a UDFA. If he's really a UDFA, then rock and roll. And maybe we get him and we can see him firsthand. That's all I'm saying.
Be real. The Dolphins are looking for a starter, not a backup.
Oh, I understand, but we do need a backup no matter what, because we don't have anybody in the roster.
I know.
So
yeah, I got you.
All right. Next one, everyone's favorite. Everybody thinks this could be the number 1 pick, Shedeur Sanders. 6'2", 215 pounds. Projected time of 4.65 seconds. Projected round of number 1, obviously, and will be a top 5 pick according to most people. Had about 4,134 yards passing, which was second in FBS. Completion rate of 74.0%. 37 touchdowns and 4 rushing touchdowns. So what can I say about Shedeur Sanders, you're probably wondering? He has okay pocket presence. Okay. And what I mean by that is when he has good offensive line production in front of him, his presence is okay. He does have a quick release and somewhat accurate in short to mid-range throws. Why I say somewhat, and I'm combining some of the strengths and weaknesses together. They go hand in hand. Okay. His biggest problem in my book is his consistency. He cannot throw short to intermediate throws consistently well. Where for every good or great pass you see, you may see 5 not so great passes where it lacks velocity, or it was put in the wrong position, or not accurate at all. That's what I see with a lot of his intermediate throws. Not to say he can't do it, because he has shown tape where he does throw very well, intermediate throws or short passes. Something we had talked about previously about quarterbacks being lazy. He does have some times where I feel like he's not putting the best of effort into his throws. It could be his mechanics. It could be the way he's snapping his hips to throw the ball. That's something for one of these QB gurus to figure out and help him develop with his passing. The other issue that he has when it comes to pocket presence, I feel when the pressure starts getting to him, he immediately starts running around to run out of it, which arbitrarily is one of his best strengths. He does have the ability to go running as a dual threat quarterback, right? And he can evade defenses. However, a lot of times I've seen that get him into trouble. And where it would just be maybe a 5-yard sack would lead to a 10 or maybe a 15-yard sack, right? So you don't want that to happen. The other issue I have with him when he's running, there's times where I'm really worried about protecting the ball. In the NFL, the defenses are faster. They're faster, stronger, smarter, more exotic. They're going to come at him from every which way angle you can think of, right? And if you don't protect that ball, it can be an issue, right? What else do I have to say about him? I'm just reading here some information. The offensive line play has sometimes masked areas of concern, such as decision making, right? Sometimes he sits there and he gets kind of caught up in the moment, and he has a hard time deciding if he needs to run with the ball or throw the deep pass, right? So that's some concerns that I have with Shedeur Sanders. Like I said, he's likely a top 5 pick, first round, no questions asked. He has a lot of talent. The biggest question mark is decision making, and can he do it outside of the system that his dad has put him in the last 2 seasons? What do you think of Shedeur Sanders, Mike?
I've said this all year. I really said it for 2 years now. He reminds me of a little less athletic, but he reminds me a lot of Vince Young. He just kind of flicks the ball out there. His deep ball it looks easy, but it's not as accurate as you would hope. He does have the escapability, but I just his throwing motion has always worried me. But he's got a quick release. We'll see what happens. I really don't believe in Shedeur. I'm most likely I could be wrong, but I definitely think he's going to be a bust.
I don't want to say he's going to be bust. I just don't think he's an elite caliber.
Let me clarify that. If you're taken in
Oh.
the top 5, you're expected to be a franchise quarterback by year 2. In recency, it's a lot of like Anthony Richardson. He's got a lot of talent. He's got a lot of potential. I really don't think he succeeds at the next level. And I could be dead wrong on this guy. I think he has a career more like Vince Young. Somebody who's going to show flashes here and there, but you mentioned it. His inconsistency really bothers me.
Yeah, that's the biggest issue I have with him. Other highlighted things to think about. He has trained with Tom Brady. Tom Brady has definitely talked highly of his skills and traits that he has. So he definitely has skills and traits that you can't coach, right? My issue primarily, like I said, is primarily the issues with this consistency. Throwing that short to immediate pass with confidence. And what I mean by that is you look at a lot of his short passes, it felt like it was like barely getting to the receiver, or it was like put too far behind the receiver rather than in front. Something with a lot of these quarterbacks when I'm talking about consistency is also has to do with accuracy of the ball thrown. And his accuracy at times is not the best. It's either too high up here when you should have just been leading the receiver so he can catch and run, or it's behind the receiver. And the other part of it is that, which I don't understand, which I kind of do if you really think about it. The only receiver he had that he was throwing consistently to was Travis Hunter. That's the only time the accuracy was good. And I had to think about it. I was like, well, Travis Hunter is that good of a receiver, so maybe he's making it look that easy. We'll definitely find out. I don't think he'll be a bust. Vince Young is definitely a good comp. Let me see if I have anybody in my notes regarding the comp that I had for him, actually. I don't know. Maybe no, nobody at the pro level do I have as a comp for him, to be honest. So we'll see. We'll see.
His
Anyway,
mental inconsistency reminds me of Jameis Winston.
ooh. I hope he doesn't fumble like Jameis Winston's, because Jameis Winston used to fight ghosts in the backfield all the time.
Well, I'm
So
telling you.
that's an
So,
issue.
so you mentioned his lack of ball security when he's scrambling, and that I mean that's why I say Vince Young, because Vince Young was notorious for carrying that ball in one hand, just thinking he was nobody's gonna get to it, whatever. He did it in college, and then he did it in the pros, and ultimately had a short career. So, granted, strip clubs had something to do with that, but still.
Yeah. Let me ask you this real quick. Do you think that weight is an issue for quarterbacks? Like, do you think the prototype of a quarterback has to be a certain weight level?
I do think that, man, I do think 225 is kind of like the standard because of the beating you're going to take. I think your body kind of holds up more, and even I know it's just 10 pounds, but really I think it's a lot to do with rib injuries, what's it called, the abdominal strains, all that. But
Mhm.
he's on. I don't know how old he is, but he still has a chance to put on some weight. Every NFL quarterback is needed to put on weight when they get in there, regardless of what they come in at. Sometimes, you get Jamarcus Russells that are huge and Dante Culpepper, but I do think it matters as far as being able to take the wear and tear, especially if you're behind a bad offensive line.
I gotcha. I mean, Jane Daniels was what, 210 pounds when he got drafted? So that's why I'm
Yeah, but
questioning. Go ahead.
well, but Jaden Daniels, though, one thing about him that makes him a little special and a little bit different, and it's rare with the rookie quarterback, is he definitely he runs away from the contact. He doesn't wait for the contact. He's not looking for contact. He knows he's not a big guy, and so I think that's something that kind of sets him apart personally.
Gotcha. Gotcha. All right. Next quarterback on the board. Let's go to here. My favorite quarterback, right? One of my favorites, obviously, who went to the Ohio State. He's the national champion winner, Will Howard, 6'4", 200. They say 235. I have heard he is now 240 pounds, right? Projected 40 times, about 4.85. He's rated to go anywhere between the second and fourth round, is what people are saying. Threw for 4,010 yards, 73.1% completion rate, 35 touchdowns, 7 rushing touchdowns. Now, there's some things I want to bring about this person before we really get into the nitty gritty about Will Howard, because I'm going to be a little bit more. I'm going to talk a lot about his weaknesses. We all know what his strengths are, but the weaknesses I do want to talk about a little bit. First, he's from Pennsylvania. He went to Downingtown West High School, was a 3-star recruit, committed to Kansas State. Kansas State played as a true freshman due to injuries, led Kansas State to the Big 12 championship after taking over for Adrian Martinez. And that was in 2022. And then 2023, he went to the state championship, or the Big 12's championship again, lost to Texas by 3 due to a snap fumble, I believe.
Yep, 4th and 1 or 4th and 3, I think.
Big 12 Player of the Year. So shout out to him for that. Transferred to Ohio State for his final season. And everything is history. Became the national champion. He has prototypical NFL size, 6'5", 240 pounds, 6'5". That means he's a very tall MFer. He has a very strong arm. I will tell you that his arm is underrated, right? He is very, very strong arm. I want to say he's not quite elite arm, but he's semi-elite arm. He has the strength. If you look at a lot of his throws, 90% of all of his deep passes, he is throwing to the receiver in a spot that the receiver can catch it while in stride, right? You don't see a lot of behind the back throws or short passes where the receiver has to come back to catch it or it's thrown behind him. You don't see a lot of that. He throws the intermediate throws. He can make all of the NFL throws that you're going to ask him to do. He can do it all. Tough physical QB who can run when needed. He needed that first down. He got it. He needed the first down against Texas, your team. He got the first down and then some against Texas. That was the main reason why Ohio State liked him when he was at Kansas State. He ran a lot more there. You didn't see a lot against a lot with Ohio State. But then again, you didn't need to run. You had two number one running backs to run for you, so you didn't really need to do it a lot. He's been experienced in multiple offensive systems, right? That is something that I like about this type of guy, because the fact that he's been under Chip Kelly. He had a system that he ran with Kansas State. It shows that he has the ability to learn at a very, very short period of time at a very fast paced rate. And he has what I call elite leadership skills and intangibles. And the reason I say that, some of the things that I like about Will Howard, I can't teach to somebody. I can't teach to somebody how to have their teammates gravitate to him, right? I can't do that. He does it naturally. He came to Ohio State, players, receivers who Ohio State have the best of the best receivers, gravitated to him immediately. The running back room, the offensive line, they clicked with him, right? He trusted them. They trusted him, right? And that is something that I think every quarterback in the NFL must possess. The ability to be a promoter or attract their team to him, to gravitate to him so they can run as one, right?
A leader of men. He's a leader of men for sure.
Leader of men. Yes, that's the proper term. Thank you. He also goes through his progressions and reads at a very high level, has great anticipation skills to read defenses, even the more complex defenses, right? And that's something that we talk about rookies not able to do. We need to teach them how to learn how to read defenses. He does it at a very good level. He's gone up against some of the best defenses. Texas, I will argue, either Ohio State or Texas have the number one or number two defense in the nation. And he was able to, play them at a very high level. So that's why I'm giving you some of this stuff. He has very clean footwork, operating under center, shows comfort in a pro style drop concept, natural rhythm passer when protected, efficient ball distributor to multiple levels, advanced pre-snap recognition, allows quick progression reads against vanilla looks. That's something else he has. He also flashes anticipatory traits, hitting receivers out of breaks against zone coverages. That's very big. This is some of the issues I have with him. He has a very tight lower body, which can cause an issue for him to reset his feet when he's on the move. So if you're looking at him to roll out of center to the right and throw on the move, he has an issue with his getting his feet set before he throws the ball, right? He will also be 24 as a rookie. We talked about backstage. We talked about quarterbacks being at a certain age when they're getting drafted, and he is one that he's going to be 24. Now that's not super old, not at all. It may set back some of his development because he may, depending on where he's at, he may not develop at the same rate as some of these younger players that are coming. There's a lot more. They have more of a lifespan of their career. He could. I don't think this is an issue, but I've heard people say it and I understand it. He could read defenses a little bit faster. I think he does it at a very high level, to be honest, better than most rookies that you see coming out in the draft. It could be a little bit faster. The pro game obviously is a lot faster. We've said that like a million times here. So I definitely think that could be an issue. Not a true dual threat QB, but functional as a runner. I don't think he's going to be a pure runner. But then again, there's a guy he reminds me of, Big Ben, right? Big Ben, tall guy, tall quarterback, around 240 pounds, could throw the deep ball like the best of them, which he can. He could run, you know, before later in his career, he could definitely run when he needed to. And I think he kind of resembles that. In fact, Steelers is a team to watch out for with this guy. I have a feeling. What else here? He does tend to throw into some double and triple coverages, but part of that, and here's the main thing about that. Part of that could be because he has some of the best receivers that he trusts. He has a JJ Smith, which me and you have argued that is probably the best college receiver today and better than most NFL receivers today, right? When you have a guy like that with his size that can go up and catch that 50-50 ball or catch that ball at a high point, right? He has the ability to trust his receiver, and that might be why he throws into those coverages. You did see an interception. I want to say it was against Texas. That was a big one, right? Where he threw into like a double or triple coverage of JJ Smith and it ended up being an interception. So that is some things to kind of worry about. What else? Currently projected as a mid to late round NFL draft pick. Some things that you may not have known. He led in all of the college football playoffs. He led in QBR and QB rating, right? Out of all of them, which remember, the thing was, what I think it was like Acho, or Emmanuel Acho, I think is who said it. That he was the worst QB in the college football playoffs, and he ended up having the highest rating and highest QBR out of all of them. So that's something to be said. He thrives in big time passing systems. I definitely think he's a day 2 guy. I'm not going to say day 1 only because the fact that he really hasn't gotten the recognition at all. But I'm going to tell you that I think he's a sleeper. He could go to a system like the Saints or the Steelers, in my opinion, and rise to become their starter and surprise a lot of people. He has the arm, he has the leadership skills. He can run. He makes all the passes that we ask our quarterback to make, no problem. And he can learn on the fly. He learned a Chip Kelly offense in a short period of time. He was only with Ohio State, not even a year. Not even a year had passed, right? And he was able to pick up that offense and run it like an elite passer. What do you think? What do you think, Mike?
I think after the combine, he's probably going to be the third quarterback taken. He won me over in the playoff. I saw enough about him to know that the intangibles he possesses, the leadership skills he possesses, like you said, and then he does have some physical traits. I think there's a very, very high chance he's the third quarterback taken. And I could be wrong. It could be one of the other guys we have on our list, but I do think that if you're looking for a guy to come in and really put a stamp on the team in the QB room, I think he's a guy that could do it. So,
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I guess let me ask you, what do you think some of the I don't know, why do you think some of the media, not necessarily the media, because the media is on board. They all like Will Howard. They love what he brought, what he showed on tape. They love what he's done in the college football playoffs. Pat McAfee won't stop talking about him. He brings him up every time he talks about college football now. Why do you think that a lot of the draft, let's say Draft Buzz or Walter Football or some of these other draft guru sites that people go to, or even the scouts, why do you think they have such a lower grade on Will Howard? Where does it stem from?
I think he's a little slower than you want typical quarterbacks to be. I think he has a quick enough release, and he's boring, man. Like he's a boring quarterback, but I think he's a safe pick because I think he's. I mean, he does make some plays, but I mean that scramble against Texas and the turf monster got him is a prime example of like he's athletic, but he's not as athletic as you want quarterbacks nowadays. But I just think it's because he is a little slower
Mhm.
through everything. Like it work and everything is a little slow, but I in today's day and age, I think having a guy that can command the room is really important, and a guy
Mhm.
that can uh, adapt and learn on the fly, like you were talking about. Learn Chip Kelly's systems are hard to learn, and he operated it to a T towards the end of the season. So it was fun to watch. I just have a sneaky feeling that he's gonna be um he might be a kind of like not okay. I'm not going to put him in the same caliber, but a guy like Josh Allen, where everybody had a low grade on him, they weren't really sure what he was going to be. They complained about his motion, they complained about his throwing motion, things like that. But then look who he is now, and I don't think Will Howard will ever be that level of QB, but I do think he's a safe bet to be. I think he could be a consistent starter. Will you ever win a Super Bowl? You can put the right team around anybody, they can win a Super Bowl. Trent Dilfer did it, but I'm honestly perplexed as to why he has such a low grade, but I
Mhm.
do think that I like him. You kept telling me that you just got to watch him, watch him, and you'll see some of the things I see, and I got to see him when the Big 12 was still around, up close and personal at Kansas State, and he developed, and I think a lot of college QBs, you want to see them develop and progress through their college career, and I think the epitome was that he is. He went from a guy that wasn't really highly touted as a quarterback coming out of high school to a
Mhm.
national champion, and yes, he had extreme amount of weapons around him, but I don't know. I like Will Howard. I like his size a lot. I do think he's built for the NFL game. I do like his arm strength. Um,
Mhm.
and he and I don't know. I got a sneaky feeling about the kid. I really do.
I think I do too. I'm glad that you brought up the speed. Now I completely understand it could be his throwing mechanics, could be a little bit faster. But when it's speed, when it comes to running, okay, reports have come out that he's been training with a QB coach and everything, and that there has been some sneaky clocks of 22 miles per hour. So if he can run 22 miles per hour, that's pretty damn fast. That's what I'm gonna say. I don't know. This is what's being reported. So just so you're aware, the combine will really show where he really is at. Like I said, the estimate is 4.85. I'm gonna say I've seen him run in practice and on the field. I'm gonna say that he could knock off maybe a 4.5 or a 4.6. I won't be surprised, right? And I think that's really good for a quarterback, to be honest. Um, but everything I agree with you. He has a lot of the what skill set that we ask. He's not the dual threat running back, but he can definitely run effectively when he needs to. And if you ever need that 4th and 1 or 3rd and 1, he can get it for you. So he's with his size and everything. Any last words before we move on to the next quarterback? No. Okay. Just to highlight some things there. All right. Next quarterback on the board is Cam Ward. Mike, you're up. What do you think of Cam Ward?
I think he's going to be number one overall. I think he definitely just the tape that I watched on him. I do like a lot of his intangibles. Um, he's extremely athletic with great twitch. He's got good mobility, and what I like about him is he tries to get out of bounds. He doesn't necessarily look for the contact, but he gets the yards needed. And he's can't. I would rather somebody just get the yards needed and go out of bounds and try and force. You're the QB. You don't want to get hurt. So I do like his decision making when it comes to scrambling. He throws really well from different arm angles.
Mhm.
Sidearm over the top, 3/4, throwing around the defensive line. I did like seeing him do that. A lot of his footwork when doing that. So what I noticed about him is when on the quick wide receiver screens or the quick screens to the running back, he's able to take the snap, drop back, and he's able to swivel his hips and really get in a good throwing motion really really quick. So I really did like his footwork. The ball placement was for me it was inconsistent. I think he definitely is able to put the ball where it's needed to be, but I do think a lot of his throws he can work on that. I think that can be taught, but I do think his ball placement's a little inconsistent, but he has great zip on the ball. He's got excellent arm strength, and he's cool, calm, and collected in the pocket. Every now and then he gets happy feet. For the most part, he's comfortable in the pocket. And one of the things I like about him is when he does scramble, he's scrambling to throw the ball. So, but at 6'2", 223, 4.87 40 time, I don't think he's a true dual threat, but I think he's got some escapability. As I said, I think he'll be the number 1 pick overall, but 4,300 yards and 67% completion. It's not too shabby. 39 touchdowns, four rushing touchdowns. But I think he's number 1 because I think a lot of people see an upside that you could really turn him into something special. Do I think he should go number 1 overall? No, I don't. But I do think he's the first quarterback taken for sure. And I think, a quarterback desperate teams in the top 5 picks right now. So I do think he's going to go number 1 overall. But I think the biggest takeaway I took are 2 things: is he's cool, calm, and collected, always poised. You said Iceman for another quarterback, and I think he's one of the same types. I don't think he gets rattled very much. And then his footwork. I think his footwork. His arm strength's so good that when he's throwing off the back, his back foot, it doesn't seem like there's any zip lost on the ball. He doesn't lose any velocity. He's able to put the ball where he wants to for the most part off his back foot. I don't want my quarterback to be thrown off their back foot a lot, but when he's escaping or trying to move back in the pocket, I think he's good at it. So I'm gonna be a lot quicker on my takes for Cam Ward or for my QBs, but I do think that Cam Ward, after watching more tape, I was uncertain about him when I started to watch the tape, but I do think he's going to go number 1 overall.
All right. Well, thank you. I agree with everything you said. I think he definitely has a lot of skills. He can improvise on plays that are broken down on the fly, at a very high level. Even throw the ball while running, he does very well. His view of the field, he like you said, calm, cool, collected, has that Iceman mentality, which really, if you don't know what I mean by that, it's really just saying that you don't let pressure get to you and get your head, your mental thoughts out of whack or anything, if you know what I mean. Like it doesn't matter what pressure you face. We got some breaking news from ESPN. You can sit there and he doesn't let the pressure get to them. He doesn't let the game get above him. He keeps the game, right where he needs it. The questions I have really stem from a specific situation that happened. Well, actually, before I get into that, you've talked about before. There are some of these quarterbacks that I think sometimes they get lazy with their throws. I've seen some lazy passing from Cam Ward. Now, I'm not saying that's all he does. No, he can definitely make all the throws. No problem. I've seen it. I just want to see it more, more so than every once in a while. I want to see consistent throws, passing crisp, not throws that it looks like he had to put more on it just to get 5 yards up the field or whatever. I want to see a lot more natural passing and everything. But my biggest question is his competitive drive. And the reason I bring that up. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. No, okay. I was going to say one of the last words I had on him. I'll let you finish, but I think it's going to be right on par with what you're about to talk about.
Go for it.
It's just I question a selfish player, and by selfish I mean taking yourself out halfway through a bowl game, and there's rumors out there that the coaches took him out, but I just think that the type of quarterback you want with competitive nature, as you're speaking of, is somebody that's out there to play for the team, and a guy that's going to put the team first no matter what. And I get this day and age, it's popular to sit out. It's popular to not hurt yourself going into the draft. But it didn't sit well with me when he took himself out of the bowl game. It really didn't. And so, but that's this day and age, a lot of players are doing that. So I don't know how much I can fault him for it. And if it was the coach's decision, I don't know. But I do think his competitive nature is a little off.
Because of that, that's why I question it, right? You look at the that game, the Pop-Tart Bowl specifically, right? We don't know if it was the coach. From what I understood, like what I've been told is that he knew he was being benched after half. It was the plan all along. Well, the issue with that is why even play the game if you were only going to play one half? I understand they wanted him to break the record or whatever, which he got. Great. But my issue is that you've already played the first half, just finish the game, and I feel like, if you're taking yourself out of the game or not putting in the full effort, like there was a play that in that game, I remember where he snapped the ball, all of his reads were already covered, and the offensive line had perfect protection. He runs over to left and just stands there for like 5 minutes, it felt like, and doesn't really do anything. He doesn't. It's like, why don't you go running? Why don't you go run? There was so much room. He could have ran for 20 yards if he wanted, and he didn't. And that raises big questions because there are quarterbacks in the NFL that have done this before. We've seen. Now, granted, he's been back-to-back MVP. Lamar Jackson, for example, there was a couple times where he took himself out of the game, and for several games, could be because of contract dispute or whatever, right? But I know he has a competitive drive. He actually in the game sitting there and just standing there. He's like, "What am I supposed to do with the ball? Run! You have legs. Run! Go get a first down or something." You know what I mean? Those are questions I ask. And as I'm a scout or if I'm a team thinking about drafting him, I'm going to sit him down and be like, "All right, can you tell me a little bit more what happened? What the thought process was here? This is what we saw on tape. What could you have done here? Can you tell me what were you thinking at this time?" Because if you're a player that you want to take time off because, you're putting self before the team, I, as a GM, don't want you on my team. Me as a player or a teammate or a coach don't want you on the team. And me as a fan don't want you on my team. You know what I mean? Sometimes players and athletes forget that, yes, you are a big thing, but there's a team rather than a you. You know what I mean? You lose the you when you leave the university, no pun intended. But you know what I'm saying? That's where it comes down for me. This is me, though. These are my opinions. Please know I'm not speaking in fact. I'm speaking in thoughts of my own opinion of the issues. How well he throws the ball, his decision making, his abilities. I don't question that. He has all that. But his competitive drive also incorporates leadership skills. What does his teammates think of, setting that precedent that he can take the game the second half off? You know what I mean? That's what that's what I think. Any last thoughts on Cam Ward?
He played in 3 different systems: Incarnate Ward, Washington State, and Miami. So I do think he's got a well-versed idea of football IQ per se. But yeah, I tried to watch film and get myself out of him thinking he's going to be the number 1 overall pick. But after watching film, I just think that I see a lot of what other scouts are seeing, and he does have some great intangibles. So at the end of the day, in my mock draft, he will be number 1 overall.
Yeah, I think this, because of his ability on the field, I think that's what makes him the QB1 for this draft, to be honest. But the other things that you can't teach, like the leadership and the competitive drive, that kind of stuff, that's where my big question marks are. And that's why I'm still, if I had the number 1 pick, I would be a little bit hesitant. I have to get those answers first. That's where I'm at. All right, let's move on to the next quarterback. Your favorite quarterback, Quinn Ewers from University of Texas, former Ohio State quarterback. Quinn Ewers is a 6'2", weighs 210 pounds, projected about 4.74 second 40 time. Projected around the 3rd round, passing yards 3,472, completion percentage 65.8, 31 touchdowns, and 2 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, so Quinn Ewers, I've heard this saying that he was better when he had the mullet, and I think he was more aggressive, and I actually think he had more confidence when he had the mullet. But besides that, I really think he can make every throw in the field, multiple levels. He can throw to all three levels. I think his deep ball is something to be leaves something to be desired. I think he has a hard time, or I don't know if he trusts himself or he has enough confidence to throw across the middle of the field sometimes. But he can make every throw, and I think that's really enticing for NFL GMs. He lacks mobility, and maybe it was his ankles. Maybe it'll change if when he has time to rest and heal up. But I think he struggles with confidence. His durability is definitely in question because he is 210 pounds. He's going to have to put on some weight. I think he definitely needs to get to that 220, 225 range, which I think makes him more of a pocket passer. With a clean pocket, he is pretty good, but I don't think he has any pocket presence as far as natural ability to feel what's coming in the pocket. He doesn't have a ton of arm strength. I do think he reads coverage really well. I think he's able to recognize what's going on before the play is snapped. I think he's going to need the right system to be successful. He's great at forgetting his bad throws, interceptions, i.e. But I think what kind of steers me away from Quinn is he made a living on throwing underneath throws, swing passes to the running back. I think the running backs had like 74 catches combined this year. And I think his deep ball, like I said, it leaves something to be desired. I think he can kind of put the ball placement in where it needs to be. But as far as leading a receiver or really trying to throw into a tight window, I'm not sure he does it as well as you would hope. But with Quinn, I I think it was his first big injury last year, and then I think this year when he got hurt, he just lost a little bit of confidence. But what I noticed consistently over the 2 years that I saw him play at Texas was the lack of ability. Was he there 2 years? I can't remember 2 years, 3 years, but his lack of ability to really feel the pocket collapsing. And so I don't know. He may end up being the fifth or sixth quarterback taken just because of his I think his lack of size, and then maybe it'll change after the combine, but he's got some ability to run, but he's just scared to run. And when he does run, he's able to get the first down and move the sticks. But he reminds me a lot like I told you behind the scenes multiple times. I feel like he's a right-handed Tua Tagovailoa, and I really do feel like he's got to throw. His anticipation is good. He can definitely throw guys open or throw to a spot, and like you mentioned about Will Howard, he definitely can anticipate the break. But at the end of the day, I don't know if I'd want Quinn Ewers as a starter. I think more of a Colt McCoy, like draft him to be a backup, which I think round 3 is high for a backup. But the reason he will be drafted maybe to be a starter one day is because his arm talent is there. It's not strength, but he can float it. He can lead. He can trying to think of the word, but anyways, he can make all the throws. And to every level. But other than that, I was sad to say it, but I was ready for him to leave. I'm ready to get somebody else in there as QB. But now the last thing I want to say about him is I think he turned into a leader. He turned into a guy that the team was willing to play for. He earned their respect over his time at Texas. He definitely turned into somebody that I think the locker room will gravitate around. But I think he lacks. I think he lacks the self-confidence to truly be an NFL star. But I could see him being consistent. I just don't know if you can win a Super Bowl with him, but you can definitely win with him. So I wish I had something else to say about him, but I really don't. I'm worried about his durability. I'm worried about his deep balls. I'm worried about his inability to throw across the middle of the field. But when it comes to NFL scouts, they really look at can you make every throw, and I really think he can make every throw. And he's not the only one on my list that I'm going to say that about, but for real, I think he makes every throw.
Definitely. I agree with everything you had to say. Tua Tagovailoa is a great comp when it comes to what he reminds me of. Being a guy that I watched him, going through the recruiting process before he decided to reclassify for the class that he did to join Ohio State's recruiting class at the year when he left high school a year early. He did. I do agree. I think he was better with the mullet. Mullet Quinn Ewers was better. Mullet's Quinn Ewers, when he was coming out of high school, had an attitude to him, and he had an aura that I'm a tough guy kind of aura, gunslinger kind of mentality, and I loved it. Right. This guy who we saw in the not the national championship game, but the semifinals of the college football playoff, I didn't recognize this guy. This guy is like, he reminds me of someone that I have found Jesus, and now I'm just calm and collected, and nothing in the world can bother me. He is calm and collected. He's very quiet. I don't necessarily like that. I like someone that's more vocal, especially when it comes to leader skill set. He can make all of the throws when he has good protection. I feel like some issues he has when a play is breaking down, he immediately leaves it. He doesn't give it a chance to see what happens to create the can't always make the anticipating throws. That's the problem, right? I think he has a hard time reading complex defenses. You saw what happened against Georgia. He got benched for Arch. And to Georgia's credit, they have one of the hardest hitting defenses in all of college football, to be honest. So their defense is usually very good, and he had a tough time 2 times against them, right? Because I think you guys lost to Georgia twice, right? The only 2 losses you had.
But the second time, I'll say this: the second time he saw that defense, he played way better. They lost because they couldn't, it was overtime. And anyways, but I do think that the second time around, I did see him play a lot better, and he was able to. But the second time around, also, he just. Something happened to the kid that he lost confidence in himself. He wasn't willing to make the dangerous throws per se. Not dangerous as he's throwing into double triple coverage, but if he didn't trust his receivers, I don't know what happened. At the end of the year, Matthew Golden was the only one he trusted, and he threw that ball to him. But when he threw it to Golden, it was money. It was only where Golden could catch it. And so I don't know what happened. I don't know when he lost confidence in himself, but in my opinion, I think he definitely lost confidence in his ability.
Yeah, I think that's partly what happened. And I think, people want to say, well, you should still be able to throw the ball, but confidence is 50% of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you have the plays like on the 4th and 13 against Arizona State where he's able to, I think he reads coverage well, but I don't know, like you said, complex defenses might confuse him, but that's something you can teach. That's not something it's not a natural ability you have to have. I think that's something that, and Sarkisian, I think he did a good job with him. He just reminds me a lot of Colt McCoy. And as far as a player comp now, it's Tua, but I think at the end of the year, at the end of the day, it's just going to be a consistent career backup. I don't know if he's ever going to be a starter.
So I have a different comp that I thought of because he, in my opinion, of the college football playoff, he was the check down king, and I'm going to go with Teddy Bridgewater. Has a lot of ability, but it has that calm, cool, collective attitude, but seems like he's lacking something, and that's why he has issues with confidence. And his throws, his deep balls are not the best, but he can definitely check down like the best. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Colt McCoy, I understand. He ended up having the longest touchdown streak since Colt McCoy, to be honest. So shout out for bringing Colt McCoy. Trying to think of what else I want to say about him real quick. If you're looking,
you should say.
I'm sorry.
I was going to say you should say thank you. You should say thank you because he definitely gifted you the game.
Well, me and Quinn Ewers have already had conversations. I thanked him. He thanked me. We gave hugs, and then he offered to sell me a Bible and go to his church and everything. And no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding about the whole thing about him finding God and everything, which is fine if he did. Great. He was really into his Lord Jesus Christ and everything. At Ohio State, we didn't see that. I saw I'm a mean, tough son of a gun, Quinn Ewers. You know what I mean? When I
Well,
saw
but
him,
Will Howard,
good, good.
yeah, I was gonna say Will Howard is a prime example. I mean, he's an epitome of a believer in Jesus first, but he still had that competitive fire, and I think that's what he lost when he cut his mullet off. Is he lost that competitive fire? So
Yeah, it's almost kind of like wasn't what was it, Samson? Who was the guy in Greek in the Bible or whatever, when they cut his hair, he lost all of his power.
Samson, yeah,
Yeah, that's kind
yeah,
of like what happened. It was weird. It's weird. Um, but this is what I wanted to say. This is something good about him. Being the fact that he was a quarterback under Zark and learning that offense, that tells you that he definitely has the ability to learn some of the most complex offenses in the pro game, right? So if you are looking to run a crazy scheme offense that's very complex, we've talked about, we've watched videos with Tua talking about our offense, and he reads a play to us, and we're sitting there like, what the hell? That's really complex. You know what I mean? Well, he has that ability. Knowing the fact that he came from that type of offense, him and Will Howard should have no problem learning offenses. That's all I'm saying.
agreed,
Um,
agreed.
but that's what I got. I think he would be a late day 2 guy. I think it's going to be day 2, late. Very late would be day 3 guy. To be honest, that would be the very latest.
Yeah,
All right.
I think the combine's going to show. I think the combine will have a lot to do with his draft stock.
We'll see. And we don't know. Maybe one of these quarterbacks blows it out of the water in the combine, and then their pro day and everything. They may go past all of our predictions. So who knows? Who knows? All right. Oh, here we go. Next quarterback on the board, Jalen Milroe out of Alabama. He's a 6'2" quarterback, weighs 225 pounds, projected 40 time 4.60. I want to say he's the fastest quarterback out of the projected 40 round time that we've seen so far. He threw about 2,844 yards on completion rate of 64.3%, 16 touchdowns, 20 rushing touchdowns. And he's a projected round 2 guy. I think he could be a first round. What do you think?
Oh man, if he goes in the first round or even the second round, I think it's a mistake. I'm gonna be honest with you. He was my least favorite of all the quarterbacks I watched. He gets really antsy in the pocket. I don't think he has much like Quinn Ewers. I think it's very questionable pocket presence. I don't think he can recognize coverages very well. He doesn't. He seems to miss when guys are open. He throws to them late. Therefore, usually it's batted down or picked off. His anticipation, I don't think he has a very good anticipation. Maybe you can teach that, but I don't think that's something you can really teach. His ball placement's extremely inconsistent. He's got really good arm strength and good mobility. His size is good. He's a great athlete. I think he has questionable football IQ. And ultimately, I don't know if he'll be a good pro. I don't even know if he'll be an average pro. I think he'll be, and I could be wrong on this kid, but when you talk about laziness, this is that he reminds me of lazy. He relies on his
Mhm.
he relies on the play too much. He doesn't really know how to ad lib. He doesn't know how to adapt to the defense. So I wasn't impressed with him. I saw some glimpses, and I can see, it's basically the same thing I saw with Anthony Richardson. Is I see glimpses of greatness, but it's glimpses. I didn't see consistency in his greatness. He had some really good games, and he had some really crappy games. In particular against Texas, I watched. Going back and watching that game in whole. I watched every play of his in that game. And there were multiple times where if he had just gone through one more read, he had a guy wide open. But by the time he got to that guy, he was covered, and he still tried to force the ball to him. So his progression is slow. He does have a hell of an arm. I'll give him that. He does flick it out there like easy as pie to get a deep ball. If the guy's open, he's pretty good at hitting them. If the guy's covered or blanketed, or if they're playing cover 2 and he's got safety over the top, I don't think he's going to complete many of those passes without a stud wide receiver. But the kid played at Alabama. I've said this on the Miami Dolphins podcast, is that there's never been a quarterback Alabama that I've actually trusted. All the ones that have gone to a different school after Alabama and played under a different system, i.e. Jalen Hurts. I think they've had a chance to be good, but he reminds me of pretty much every Alabama quarterback of the past. Like he was good because he was at Alabama. This guy's going to be more of a running back than I think a quarterback. That definitely reminds me of Anthony Richardson. You're going to have to really, really just wait on his passing game to develop. But Jalen Milroe to me, if he's drafted anywhere in the top 3 or 4 rounds, I think it's a mistake because I just don't think he has. I don't think he has the mental fortitude. I don't think he has the football IQ.
Mhm.
I don't think he understands defenses. I think the he relies on his coach too much. He relies on the play too much. When the play breaks down, he's just looking to run. So, anyways, I don't have much to say about him other than I don't like him.
Well, I completely understand. You're definitely right about a lot of things. However, let's talk about him a little bit more. I do think there's some context to some of this stuff that we have to, create and explain. As well, there's some biases in what we see here that I think that we can overcome. All right. So number one, in my part of the town, we call him Jalen Mini Hands Milroe. Okay. Just
Yeah,
so
it's
you know,
eight
that's
and
his
three
name.
quarters. I have that. I
Yeah,
have
he
it
has
written down. I have it written down. Small
smaller
hands, 8 and 3
hands than
quarters.
Kenny Pickett, right? And Kenny Pickett, the big funny thing about him, we were calling him mini hands. I'm sorry, Jalen Milroe decided to break that record too, right? He does have a hell of his arm strength is very, very big, right? That's his greatest strength. And he can throw the deep pass better than anybody, right? He can throw deep dimes all the time, no problem. It is his grade for his deep long throws are very, very high. You can go to all the different websites; they will tell you that. His intermediate to short game is an issue. It's subpar 75% grade, but I personally think it has to do with his stance and mechanics, primarily where he sets his feet, right? From this before snap and after. If you watch the tape, there's video you can see of him being in a squared stance in the shotgun, for example. He's not sitting there 1 foot forward, 1 foot back like you see Aaron Rodgers do. And because he's in that squared stance every time, he can't get his feet straight. So when he's finally set to be able to throw, the protection where the offensive line is completely different than where it started. And he's having to make quick decisions on the fly that causes a lot of those inaccuracy in throwing. Let it be a behind the receiver or too high, or it wasn't enough strength on it, or it was completely nowhere near where the receiver was when he threw it. I think if you can coach him, get him with, what was that QB coaching, that QB school that Tua went to, 3DQ or whatever it is, 3D QB. It's in California with John Beck. Go send him to John Beck. Get his mechanics fixed. Get his stance corrected. Kind of teach him how to be that 3-step quarterback. And I think that will help fix a lot of his throws. I've seen him make good zero to intermediate throws without any problem, right? It's just not consistent at all. And I think he definitely needs to have that coached up. You said that you can't learn anticipation. I think you can in certain systems. And I think in the right system, it would work for him. If you're trying to put him in a system where you want him to be part of the running game, no problem. This guy can do it. He can run like the best. 20 touchdowns. He seems to be a run first guy. And if you're worried about contact, don't worry. This guy doesn't mind putting his body on the line. He invites the contact. Yeah, bring it. No problem. Right?
You know who he reminds me of?
Who?
Justin Fields.
He's a slightly bigger Justin Fields, and I will even say he's faster than Justin Fields. This
No,
guy has
but
more
but
speed
he's
than
I
he
think
does. Go ahead.
Marley. I think he's a better runner than he is a thrower, though. I think I just question his throwing ability. I just but again, as I say on the screen, I'm not an expert. I just didn't get a good feeling after watching him. I just I'm kind of eager to see where he goes. I think that definitely will either be a great thing for him or a terrible thing for him if he goes to a pass first offense. I don't know if he'll ever be the starter on that team without injuries playing a role. So, anyways, but that's my take.
I completely understand. And, there's other things that also that, we don't really talk about when it comes to some of these players that I think we should. We've talked about, QBs coming out of the Pacific Northwest, like out of the Pac-12 and stuff like that, and how those teams are really not built with elite defenses, right? The SEC and the Big Ten, in my opinion, have some of the best defenses you're ever going to face, right? And some of the hardest hitting defenses. And with that being said, he's faced a really good defense. One of his best games, passing, in fact, go check out the Georgia game. The Georgia game was
it was
really
good.
That was really good. Most of the stuff that I really think he does very well, you saw it in that game. He also does some things where he will use
he almost cost him that game too, though.
I understand. But he does some things that I think you can't really teach, but they're considered QB skills. Maybe you can teach it. He uses things like pump fakes. He can sometimes move players with the direction of, reading his progressions and stuff. I think he does that very well. Like I said, he can throw the deep ball, no problem. They just need someone to fix his mechanics, his footwork and stance. And I think the intermediate throws will become mass improvement. You could probably make him in a pretty okay intermediate thrower without any problem within a week of working with him if he has the right coach. That's what my opinion is. But ultimately, I think because he has that freak athlete ability with his deep pass arm and his legs, very similar to what you saw Anthony Richardson. Maybe this is a guy the Saints or some team like that in the first round at the, maybe later in the first round takes a flyer on him because of that. You know what I mean? I do think he's all around a day 2 guy, but I could see someone taking him in the first round just because of those things.
I mean, after the Shrine Bowl, he didn't help his draft stock. He gonna have to do something special at the combine. I'll say that.
Yeah, he definitely has to. Maybe a team in the second or third round wanted to, take a flyer on him. They want to develop him, have him go to a QB school or two.
But I don't think
get trained.
I just don't think you can take a project. I don't think you can take a project in the first 2 rounds. I think you got to take a guy that has enough of a skill set to where he doesn't need that much development. He just needs a little bit of the NFL coaching. Anyways, if he goes round 2, if he goes in round 2, I think it's a bust. If he goes in round 1, I definitely think it's a bust because those guys need to be able to plug and play by year 3 at the latest. And I don't know. We'll see what happens with him. I definitely think he definitely needs. You're right on the mechanics. Somebody's going to have to teach him his footwork because I thought it was dreadful.
Definitely. All right, next quarterback. Dillon Gabriel, 6 foot, 200 pounds, projected 4.83 seconds 40. I project him within around the 4 and 5, to be honest. Threw about 3,857 yards, 72.9% completion rate, 30 touchdowns with 7 rushing touchdowns. What do you got for me with Dillon Gabriel?
Well, second most yards in college history behind Case Keenum. He threw for 18,722 yards. He's he's going to be 25 when he's drafted, I think. He started his career at, I want to say it was UCF, then he went to Oklahoma and then Oregon. This kid, I think the size is going to be the biggest problem for him. He's going to have the O-line be able to create the windows for him to throw through. He's a good scrambler. I definitely think he's a great scrambler. I don't know if he's a good runner, but when the pocket breaks down, he's able to escape and get the yards needed. His arm strength is so. He's another guy though that can make all the throws. I don't think there's a level he can't throw to. He's got good anticipation. He did play 2,100 snaps in college, but I think he was a product of the collegiate systems he played in. I think Lincoln Riley did pretty good with him, but I don't think he stayed with him enough to really be. He'll be an I think he'll be an average NFL quarterback. I don't know if he'll ever be good. It kind of reminds me of Chase Daniel. I think he's going to be somebody that knows the offense. He's going to be able to be. His football IQ is off the charts. But I do think he was a product of the system he played in. So because being Lincoln Riley, all quarterbacks look good under him, and then being at Oregon, yeah, that's a system that would, I mean, for decades now, it's been a great passing system. So I think his biggest downsides, he's actually got bigger hands than Jalen Milroe. That's funny fact. But I think his size is going to be his biggest issue. I think he'll be fragile. But I think he's somebody you want because you mentioned it before with the guy. He's not going to throw. He's not going to make very many turnovers. He's not going to be uncharacteristic. Ooh, I can't even say the word. But he's not going to take too many risks. He's going to be. He's going to be somebody that you're going to want because he's going to be able to run the second team offense great. He's going to be able to run every offense on scout team great. And he's somebody that'll probably make a lot of money as a backup in the NFL.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. He definitely has very high level football IQ. Can make all the throws, especially the deep outs. I think he does very well. He can make his mid range throws pretty well as well. However, he is sometimes hesitant, and he doesn't always throw with confidence, which I have an issue with. I will say out of all of the QBs, this guy is the most consistent. We talked about inconsistent. This guy is the most consistent throughout his entire career. If you wanted a QB that would average about 3,500 yards, 30 touchdowns, and about 6 or 7 interceptions a year, Dylan Gabriel is your guy. He did that every year. He had about 3,500 yards. Every year was about 30 touchdowns and about 6 to 7 interceptions, except for 1 year, which was 2021. I believe he got injured that year, right? So that being said, if you're looking for a consistent left-handed, I don't know if you want to call him a gunslinger because I don't really consider him a gunslinger at all. This would be your guy. I think Tua is more of his comp, in my opinion. He throws all the checkdowns very well. Does have some good deep passes. But I want to say that he does have some arm limitations though. So his arm is adequate.
Agreed.
But sometimes it's limited, right? What else can I say about him? There was something else I saw that I wanted to bring up. Under pressure, I think he lapses his mechanics. You saw against Ohio State that, he was under pressure a lot during that game. And that was something else I wanted to bring up. We say he has a high football IQ. There's sometimes that I'm worried he doesn't necessarily know how to use it. And in coverage, when complex defenses try to kind of hide some things that they're doing. So Ohio State, for example, because that was a horrific game for him, in my opinion, right? Against Ohio State, they do something called a jack defense. It's called a hybrid jack defense. And what they do is they hide one of the outside linebackers and either have him roll out into coverage versus having one of the inside guys roll out to coverage. And he sweeps the inside depending on what they're doing. And there was 2 or 3 times during that game that Ohio State did that, and they either picked off the ball or it was for sure batted down, no problem, right? I don't know if he really can read defenses at a very high level. Outside of playing Ohio State, I don't really think they played anybody that was really considered real competition as a dominant defense and an elite offense, for example. I don't think they played anybody else at that level. So that's why I'm not really high on Dylan Gabriel. He beat all the teams he was supposed to and everything. But when the lights were on and it shined the most, he couldn't get the job done versus Ohio State. And that was the worst game out of all of them. So
May
that's
have been
kind
the
of,
worst game of his career. That may have been
yeah,
the worst game of his career, to be honest.
every snap on defense, it looked like he was going to get sacked every time, or did get sacked every time. There was some sacks that he should have thrown the ball away, and he was just taking and taking. And I'm like, bro, it's cool. I'm glad that you're not running all around and acting all frantic and throwing interceptions left and right. But why are you taking these sacks? Throw the ball away. You had time. I don't understand. But that being said, I do think that he's going to be a day 3 guy, early day 3. That's kind of where I have him. Where do you have him?
I think he's gonna. Yeah, I think that's a good placement for him as far as draft. I think he's a guy you're gonna want on your team as a backup QB because he will know the playbook in and out, and he'll be able to learn everybody else's playbook in and out. You muted your mic.
I know.
There you go.
I did it purposefully.
Oh, okay.
No, I completely agree with that. So
I think round 5. I think round 5 is a good spot for him to go. Personally,
definitely. If you guys think
I'm terrified.
differently, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm terrified that Miami's going to draft him.
I'm really terrified that too, man. A lot of the Miami fans have already talked about this guy. We already have this guy in house. We don't need another one of these guys. I want a gunslinger. I personally want a pocket passer that's a gunslinger. Go get me a Will Howard or a Kyle McCord, or that style quarterback.
Or my next guy.
Or my next guy. Yeah. So definitely. But if you guys like any of these QBs or have different thoughts, put it in the chat. Put it in the comments below. Or if there's a QB we haven't brought up today, make sure you put it in the comments who you want us to talk about. We're going to have like a honorable mention show where we talk about some of the QBs we didn't talk about. And not just QBs, but other positions as well. But the last guy, kind of interested in and want to hear what he has. And I apologize if I tear up this person's last name. Tyler Shug out of Louisville. Friend of the channel, Lewis.
I think it's Shaw.
It might be Shaw.
Or Shug.
Todd McShay called him Shug, so that's what I'm going with. So if Todd McShay is wrong, talk to Todd McShay. God, I can't even say his name right. Damn. I'm sorry. But Tyler is 6'5", weighs 225 pounds, projected 40 time of 4.72. He is projected to be a UDFA. But he has about 3,195 passing yards, completion rate of 62.7, 23 touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown. Tell me what you got on Tyler.
I played in 3 different systems: Louisville, Oregon, and Texas Tech. He is the biggest downside I have to him. I'll start with that, is that he's 28. I think that's gonna kind of shy a lot of people away from him, but his size is definitely gonna make him appealing. I think he has great arm strength. He's got sneaky mobility. He's got more speed, game speed, than tape speed. I do think he's able to scramble and get some QB runs that maybe you don't expect from him. I expected him to struggle seeing coverage, but I think he did better than I expected when I turned on the tape. I was really impressed with some of his ability to look off the defenders. He's got it. I think he has a cannon. I watched so many where he's got some throws where he was knocking the receiver down with the pass. I think his age is going to be the biggest issue. But with Tyler, what I liked about him is I think he is kind of cool, calm, and collected. He's one of another guys that I think he has pretty good pocket presence. When the play breaks down, he's able to he gets the yards that are given to him per se. He's not looking to extend plays too much. I think he's going to be a coveted backup. with high upside. I think he's a guy that can win a game in an emergency situation. I don't think he's going to lose the game for many teams. I wholly disagree with undrafted free agent. I actually think he's going to be one of the steals of the draft because I think you can develop this kid. I know he's not a kid; he's a full-grown man at 28. But I think you can develop him. And Kurt Warner was a late bloomer as far as when he got drafted in the NFL or when he got picked up in the NFL. He was a little bit older, and he was a great quarterback. I mean, he went to a Super Bowl, and I think this guy could be something close to that. I don't know. He was the favorite quarterback I watched, and he was the least expected for me to say that about. But I do think he was my favorite quarterback. I just think he's able to take the top off the defense. But I will say he becomes a one read QB more often than I would like. Because he definitely he will fixate on a receiver a little too much. I think you can coach that out of him, but it's one of those things where I think he kind of predetermines before the play where he's going to go with the ball. But his it's more consistent that he predetermines where he's going to throw the ball, but he showed flashes of being able to really get through his reads at a high level. I think I honest to God, I was shocked when I watched the tape of him because I didn't know much about him. And then I was pleased. I was very pleased. Dude, I would love for Miami to draft him because I think you can get him in here. He does. I think he had for me, it was a decently quick release. But his throwing motion is great. It's over the top. He's got good footwork. I don't know if he's got, I didn't see much of his ability to reset his feet, but you're not going to have to work on his mechanics too much. I think maybe his footwork needs to be worked on. But for me, I'm if he's round 4, round 5 guy in my opinion. Somebody that team can draft and be comfortable with him as plugging in playing as a backup. But I do think his upside is he could be a decent NFL quarterback. I was shocked when I watched his tape because I didn't know much about him. I knew where he'd been, but I didn't know that. I didn't know he possessed the arm talent that he has. He definitely needs to work on his touch. His ball placement can be inconsistent, but his deep ball is really nice. And when he needs to throw into a tight window, he's got the cannon to do it. So that's my opinion on him. I think he's around 4, around 5 kind of guy. Definitely not an undrafted guy.
So when you gave me this name as one of the QBs that you're looking up, I was like, who the heck is this guy? Right? I found out he went to Louisville. I asked some friends of the channel that have that have connection with Louisville and actually have an athlete that goes there. One of our friends' sons goes to Louisville. He didn't have very much high things to say, primarily based on the fact that he didn't watch him enough to really know, if there's anything really there, though, right? I watched him in the Senior Bowl. His passes look crisp. They look clean. He does have the arm ability and velocity to throw all 3 ranges, everything from intermediate, medium, and long range. No problem. He has a good football IQ. What I will also say, you are right, being the fact that he is 28 could, be a damper on him because that means his time is limited. He may have a harder time making adjustments than someone that is much younger when it comes to the game. However, depending the right fit in the right city, I think this would be a good fit because he's not a child. He's a grown man, as you said. So that means his maturity level should be higher. And that could help you if you're definitely looking for a professional backup to come in and hold it down for you, for example, right? Does he have ability to become a starting QB in the league? It's possible. He definitely possesses pre-snap look efficiency, shows good understanding of defensive leverage. What else can I tell you about him? He definitely has experience in both pro style and spread offenses. That's really good. And he does some good decision making based on what I've seen on tape of him, right? What else? Is he 28? I thought he was 25. I could be wrong about that. I know he's much older.
No, he's
Um,
definitely. Oh no, he is 20. No, yeah, he is 25. That's my fault. He's 25. He's born in 99, so he'll be 26 this year. Oh, Ollie went away. It's just me.
I'm right here. No, I'm right here. So
Yeah,
yeah,
he is 25. I said 28. That was my fault.
okay, yeah, he's 25, right? So he's 1 year older than Will Howard, right? So that's not too bad. Um, so I'm not really gonna say the age is anything. They say it can be, but you know, it is what it is. What else can I tell you about him? Um, there was something else I saw I wanted to read to you that I found. So yeah, I think it's really just his lower body mechanics that he needs to work on. Getting his feet set, to be a little bit more of the accurate passer. Like you said, he's a little bit inconsistent. I think with his accuracy, he can get a little bit better. The Senior Bowl, I saw some really good stuff. I definitely would think that he's probably worked himself way probably into the seventh, maybe sixth round, possibly after the combine, after the pro days and stuff. Maybe it'll be a little bit higher, but I did see some promising things in the Senior Bowl with him, especially in the practices and whatnot. But yeah, that's the last quarterback I think we have on the list for us. So who's on your board? Who do you guys like? Who do you guys don't like? What did we say that maybe swayed you towards some of the other quarterbacks? Right? Right now, I want to say the only person close to being QB1 for me, maybe Cam Ward because of all of his abilities. Right? I'm still not in love with it, but I'll definitely accept it. I'm not very high on Shador Sanders. I think Jackson Dart is probably going to be a solid pick, and I do think he could sneak into the first round. Um, Will Howard and Kyle McCord are my safe picks. I think they have a great arm strength, have an ability to maybe become that. And I don't want to say they're Josh Allen either, but Josh Allen-esque type of quarterbacks, a gunslinger that can definitely make the deep throws and get you those yards running when needed, for example. There's a lot of stuff, and I like Tyler Shu or Shug, however you say his name. I definitely like him too. I think he'd be a great developmental quarterback, and maybe could become that Brock Purdy person, type of person. Speaking of Tyler, what was his comparison? What player comparison did you have for him?
Man, it was tough for me to say, but because the guy I'm going to compare to didn't really, I mean, he sucked in the pros, but it was Ryan Mallett. Big body,
Mm,
big arm, um, questionable footwork, but I think what I like more about Tyler is his leadership ability, his mental capacity. I think he's a little bit more mature than Mallet was. I don't think he's going to be out partying. I think he's going to be in. I think he's going to be a gym rat. I think he's going to be a guy that studies the playbook in and out. I just but I was trying really hard to think of it. Maybe a Joe Flacco. I could see him being more of a Joe Flacco type quarterback as far as a guy that was somewhat successful. I mean, did win Super Bowl, but
mm.
he's definitely not going to be a dual threat guy. But I think he does have sneaky athleticism. So, but I did see him throw multiple angles, but he's primarily over the top. So I definitely think it's more of a Joe Flacco if I'm going to comp to anybody.
You know, Joe Flacco is an interesting one. Somebody he kind of reminded me looking at him from a distance and the way he threw kind of reminded me of a Jared Goff that's not as accurate as Jared Goff. You know what I mean? He has that kind of
I think he has a
mechanic.
much bigger arm.
Good, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I agree with that, but I know I agree with you on that. But he has a much bigger arm, in my opinion, than Jared Goff.
Possibly. We'll definitely see what happens. But yeah, so that's our show. That was our show for today. Talking about quarterbacks. What position are we going to talk about next? What do you want to do next?
Well, we'll leave it up to the chat. I either want to go running backs or I want to go wide receiver, tight end. Y'all tell us what you want. They're both loaded classes in my opinion. There's a ton of wide receivers, a ton of running backs in this one. The tight end class is incredibly deep this year. I think there's 8, 9 tight ends that I think could be very, very. They can contribute day one in the NFL. But leave it up to y'all, and we'll get the most votes we have. Whatever, we'll go back and research. You want to leave a comment after the video is done, you can do that. Hit us up on Twitter at 4th and 10U. And I want to finish. I want to finish with: we are not experts. We are amateurs when it comes to watching film. We watch a lot of football. There's probably a lot of stuff that we said that you might disagree with. I don't expect y'all to agree with everything we said. This is just our opinion. This is what we see. I don't know how to diagnose. I can tell you what cover 2 is and cover 0 and things like that. But when it comes to defenses and I know how to read what formation we're in on offense, but we have not. This is not something we do on a regular. So if you disagree, please help us, educate us, because what you disagree with, I'll look into and I'll learn from it. And so I appreciate y'all watching though, and make sure you hit that like button on the way in.
Yeah, so definitely make sure you hit the like button. Turn on, subscribe, turn on the notification bell if you're new. We're going to be putting out some more episodes. Put it in the chat. Do you want wide receivers and tight ends or running backs as being the next next show? And stay tuned for some insights on that team up north. I got some news piping down the way. I know we wanted to talk about it, but I think we're going to make that a whole show. What do you think, Mike? We'll do that. We'll talk about
I think
handles of college football. That's what we'll call it.
Well, maybe we'll wait till after the punishment's handed down. I think that'll be a good time.
That's perfect time. All right, man. I'll see you later. Everyone hit the like button. With that ado, we'll see y'all later. Have a good night.